Hello everyone, I'm TitanBot and today we're going to play Hearts of Iron 4 as Romania, and we are going to perform a world conquest as a non-aligned country. As our first focus, we'll select Institute Royal Dictatorship, and for research we'll use our 3 slots to do basic industrial research. For the army, we're going to start by converting the cavalry divisions into infantry ones, then we'll separate the trained units in one army and have the others get trained as well. Our next order of business is to create an army group with all our armies, then to assign commanders and a field marshal for our army. We are going to use the Field Marshal's orders to move all troops to the Bulgarian order, then draw an invasion order for later. In regards to our tiny navy, we'll assign the to-be-built submarine to our fleet, then we'll have it training in the Black Sea. We're also going to assign our only admiral to supervise the fleet. Going back to production, we have 2 military factories and a dockyard, which we will use for convoys. We're low on pretty much everything, but with these 2 mills, we'll make some motorized and fighters. Ah yes, back to the king. Carol II was a very controversial figure back in his days, the type of guy that all tabloids would love. In-game, that generates some pretty nasty events, which gives us a choice between 2 bad options, like take an industry hit with plus 20% consumer goods, or the other one being minus 90 political power and only 3% extra consumer goods. Unfortunately for us, we need the political power so badly that we'll take basically every industry hit every time the king is caught red-handed. The next focus is revise the constitution, which will give us 1% extra recruitable manpower and will allow the king to have all his friends in the government and in the military high command, which reduces the PP cost for laws, government and military stuff by 25%. All the focuses in the Dominate the Balkans branch require a certain amount of troops in the field, and to reach that we'll start training cavalry units. We'll deploy these as soon as we can and will then convert them to regular infantry divisions with low equipment priority. Our third focus will be the Royal Foundation, which will give us 1 extra research slot. With the political power we saved so far, we'll hire the silent workhorse and change the national economy law from civilian economy to partial mobilization, which reduces the construction time for factories and also reduces the consumer goods from 35 to 25%, which will speed up our construction of civilian factories by a hefty amount. The next government figure we are going to hire is the backroom backstabber for the 5% extra political power provided. Also, we have to deploy those cavalry we are training at the moment they're ready. Lots of stuff has happened at once. We have 1 extra research slot and we have to select a new focus. For the focus we'll go for Dominate the Balkans. We'll change those trained cavalry into infantry and add them to a low equipment priority theater, which will be holding our future front line against the Soviets. With the 4th research slot we've got, we'll start researching the superior firepower doctrine, because it's so good for infantry-based armies. And we'll also hire the captain of industry to further speed up our construction. Since we don't have enough manpower in the field to start puppeting Bulgaria or Hungary, we will select the national defense industry focus, because we badly need more factories. We also want to change the conscription law to provide us with even more manpower. We'll accept the German proposal and we're going to start puppeting Bulgaria. In this case, they agreed, but the best outcome is for them to refuse our demands, for us to conquer them for their industry. Since they are now our puppet, we can request their troops, which will integrate in the army, and start the focus to puppet Hungary. We can now hire an infantry expert, which is very helpful for our almost all infantry army. And another industry hit. Fortunately for us, the Kingdom of Hungary was defiant and we got a war goal. We'll use this war goal immediately to declare war against Hungary and proceed to conquer everything. We'll also start the Divide Yugoslavia focus and call Bulgaria into the war in the hopes that they'll change some manpower law or economy. Hungary is an easy conquest, so we should be able to defeat them before the next focus is done. We are going to destroy these surrounded troops for some extra army experience. As for the peace conference, we'll just take everything. Let's assign the army only on our direct border, because this way we won't stretch our army too thin and give Prince Paul of Yugoslavia a chance to inflict too many casualties on our army. Since they refused us, which is what we wanted anyway, we'll declare war immediately and proceed to conquer them. We'll take all states and move up against Czechoslovakia, our next victim. Okay, Edvard Beneš was defiant. Good. Let's just hope we are going to get something out of it, because Germany usually takes everything. We've broken through. With a bit of manual override, we are going to pursue the enemy division that we have just beat and push towards Prešov. Alright, here's the peace conference. We'll take what we can, but we'll also leave Carpathian Ruthenia to the Germans. When Poland will get divided between the Germans and the Soviets, we don't need to contend with a longer border, which will be more difficult to defend. We'll continue to go down the non-aligned path and select His Majesty's Loyal Government focus. The next nation on our conquest list is Greece, and for a nice front line against the Greeks, we will need Bulgaria to help us with this one. It's also an easy fight. Rushing Athens means that the war is over fast. For our next focus, we will select Militarize the Sentinels, which will increase our recruitable manpower by an extra 1%, making our army big enough in order to select the Secure the Bosphorus focus in the future. As always, in the peace conference, we are going to annex all states. Considering the next focus down the non-aligned path that stops our king from being, well, stupid, also gives a very small daily democracy increase, we have invested quite a lot of political power in anti-fascist, anti-communist and anti-democratic raids, and we've also banned the fascists and the democratic parties. Okay for the Democrats, but why also the fascists, you may ask? Well, both Italy and Germany have a focus that will give us a huge fascist daily increase, and we don't have available to hire a guy that would provide a daily extra non-aligned support to offset that. Also, in the beginning of 1939, we should be starting to build forts at our border with the Soviets. I've also ordered the construction of forts in the provinces bordering the Polish state of Stanislavov, I hope I got the name spelled right, which will become Soviet after the partition of Poland. In order to meet the 750,000 soldiers quota required for the last focus in the Balkans Dominance tree, we are going to increase the infantry division size by adding an extra infantry battalion, also increasing the combat width of this template to the ideal 20 for defense. Our next biggest concern is that we don't have enough equipment for our troops. This will make them ineffective in combat, but time is short and we have to prepare for the inevitable Soviet assault. In order not to lose half the army, we'll have to avoid combat over the Bosphorus, because that's a fight we can't win without serious equipment dominance over the Turks. Something we simply don't have at this moment. We'll continue down the army branch of the focus tree in order to secure even more extra manpower. With the Turkish conquest focus complete, we are going to waste no time and declare war immediately. For a proper attack path and other reasons I'll explain when we've beaten Turkey into submission, we'll have to call in Bulgaria. And we'll proceed with our focused attack over Thrace. Unfortunately for us, the Turks have managed to scramble a proper defense over the strait, and we can't just punch through it. That's not a problem, however. We're going to retreat for them to retake their initial territory and try again to slip past them over the Bosphorus. They have a larger navy than ours, so if they're going to try to invade us anywhere, we have a full army fully trained and prepared to stop any incursion on the shores. and we're in danger of being encircled in Anatolia. We're going to rectify this encirclement issue with the Bulgarian cavalry. All they have to do is hold while the army will arrive to stop the Turkish assault on Istanbul. Okay, the danger of being encircled has passed, and now we are ready to crush the Turks in Anatolia. We are also keeping the troops they've sent to Greece occupied, so they can't retreat those back to Turkey to stiffen their resistance. We are continuing with the Royal Guards Division's focus, which will give us a 7 infantry and 2 artillery with support template, and a veteran division. Turkish troops are nowhere nearly enough to cover the ever-expanding front line, so we're just advancing through the gaps between their forces. As you can see, the invasion goes as planned, and we've also proceeded to liquidate their troops in the Peloponnese. At this point, the conquest of Turkey is a matter of when, not if. We were only hampered by the relatively large size of the country, needing a few eastern provinces for the country to actually surrender. In the peace conference, we are going to take all provinces but the 2 bordering the Soviet Union in the Caucasus, because it will be too much for our army to fight a defensive war against the Soviets on 2 fronts. We are giving these 2 provinces to Bulgaria, and we are not going to call them in the war with the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Poland has collapsed, the Germans are doing their thing in Western Europe, and we are building forts and military factories. We're moving our frontline army to cover the border now that the Soviets have taken Eastern Europe. And we've also set up the Bulgarian forces in a separate army tasked with garrisoning all the ports to prevent any Soviet invasions, because they're probably going to try that. Our biggest concern at the moment is the insufficient amount of infantry equipment. Apparently we need around half a year to break even. Also, the Soviet Union has declared war on Finland, which means that we are next on their aggression list. I'm hoping we'll have enough guns and ammo to fight them effectively by then. Meanwhile, the Allies are getting an ass whooping, and the Germans are also looking northwards, towards Denmark and Norway. Japan has opened a successful front with the naval invasion, occupied China's capital Nanjing, and proceeds to conquer the entire country. Alright, here we go. This is the moment we've been preparing for the last 4 years. We are waiting until we have 1 day left with our answer, so we are going to allow our industry to produce a few more weapons for the upcoming war. Oh, would you look at that? They've been justifying against us the regular way as well, so one way or another we would have had a war, even if we would have yielded to their territorial demands. Since this event is about us, I'll read it aloud. Romania rejects Soviet demands. The Soviet Union has been concentrating significant forces along its border to the Kingdom of Romania, and today Moscow has issued an ultimatum to the Romanian government, calling for the immediate transfer of Bessarabia to its control. The region once belonged to the Russian Empire, which the Soviet Union sees as sufficient legal basis for their demands. In a defiant move, Bucharest has chosen to reject all Soviet territorial demands, and the Romanian army has been given the order for a complete mobilization. International observers expect Soviet forces to cross the border at any moment. Bessarabia is ours. What little does Stalin know, this move here is the beginning of the end for him. I've done a little mistake here while trying to relieve some of my more battered troops through rotation because I was basically careless. So I'll show it to you guys, hoping that you won't do the same mistake as I did. I tried to immediately recover the lost province in an attack with the core of what's going to be the pushing army, but I failed miserably, and all I've managed to accomplish was to lose a ton of very precious equipment and manpower. As you can see, we should be able to hold the line even if we lost the fortified province and the safety provided by the river, but for good measure, we are going to start building forts in here as well. Okay, this is the fascist event I was talking about earlier, because it makes staying non-aligned as Romania almost impossible. It will provide a 0.1% fascist support per day for the next 3 years. It's like having hired a fascist demagogue. There are 2 ways you can stop this thing with. Getting a democratic reformer and firing him later on, but from my perspective that's even more riskier because you already have a 0.02% daily democratic support from your king. Or you can link anti-fascist raids back to back for the next 3 years, which will slow down the process enough so you will end up with fascism support being somewhere between 50 and 60%. From this moment on, you can either keep doing the anti-fascist raids if you need extra stability, or you can just let the ban fascism decision to slowly bring their support to 0. At the moment, we are training those 7-2 divisions with support because we are preparing our counterattack. They're going to be very well equipped because that template is marked as elite. Also, they're going to get faster experience if they defend against the Soviet assault rather than getting trained the old-fashioned way. So, we are going to deploy them and have them accustomed to fighting the Soviets, but we don't want to waste too much time because Germany can break the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact anytime now. Okay, it's 1940 and in no more than half a year, the Nazis will engage the Soviets in battle. We want to annex the entire Soviet Union ourselves, thus we can't allow Hitler to gain serious land within the Soviet Union. How are we going to prevent that, you may wonder? We're going to thrust north towards the Baltic. This way we'll trap high-powered, well-trained Soviet divisions at the German border, and the Nazis can destroy those for us while they take back Eastern Poland. We are also going to join the Axis for limited German help. This way we are going to have the most war score at the peace conference, and the operation to conquer the world can finally begin. Alright, we've broken through the Soviet line because their frontline troops were exhausted. Our troops have gained some nice experience and they can now push into the Soviet Union more effectively. Adolf and Joseph have begun squabbling over territorial issues a bit too soon for our liking because we haven't reached the Baltic yet. We are going to adapt a bit and we'll use the fact that most of the current war score is in our favor. So, if the Germans reach Lithuania before we do, we'll just ask to transfer the control of whatever Russian provinces they hold to us, thus cutting their direct access to the front line and limiting their intervention in the war. This is the situation on the front, after the two dictators have started to trade punches. This is a mixed bag situation for us, because we are not losing too many soldiers and equipment, and that's good. But the Nazis are getting a bit of a war score, and that's bad. They still haven't surpassed us, but they're getting a bit too close for comfort. We are going to keep requesting some more provinces, thus dwindling their implication in the war in the long term. At this point we have kind of broken through the Russian resistance, and as you can see, so did the Japanese against China. Basically, it's just about having our troops travel fast enough and far enough to capture the small victory points in the Urals and have Stalin surrender. Alright, at the peace conference we'll just take the coastal provinces for ourselves and form a shell around Russia. And because we have tolerated King Carol II's caprices, we are treated with probably one of the best events in the game. Magdagrad and Zizigrad! Named after the two women in King Carol II's life, Elena Lupescu and Zizi Lambrino. From this point on, it's abundantly clear that Romania simply lacks the manpower required for such a massive undertaking like conquering the entire world. To offset this, we are going to copy our 7-2 template into a Russian one, and we'll recruit Russians in our army instead. The idea is that Romanian troops have given us Russia, Russian troops will give us Japan and continental Asia, and further along the way, Chinese troops will conquer the world for us. Our next order of business will be to conquer Japan, but we can't attack them directly because they're guaranteed by two of the fascist dictators of Europe, Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. So, we are going to attack one of their puppets instead. Manchukuo looks like a good target. We're going to take over Japan's holdings around the world in two steps. First, we'll attack them on the home islands and get them on the brink of defeat. To do that, we'll have to make good use of the air power to bomb their fleet and troops into submission. It's going to be a very difficult fight because they'll pour massive reinforcements from everywhere else to defend Japan. For the actual invasion, we have prepared two full armies of 7-2 infantry, and we have the Bulgarian troops in a separate army tasked with garrisoning all our ports in the area. We'll extend their garrison orders to the home islands as we progress. We are not going to call in Russia on our side, because if we do, Japan will just push into their territory and sever our supply routes. Also, our army is nowhere near large enough to be able to engage both mainland Japan and their puppets at once, on such a wide front. So, for the moment, Russia's role is to shorten the front lines, forcing Emperor Hirohito's forces to fight us in easily defensible positions. Once they are on the verge of surrender, we will stop our attacks and shift our attention towards their holding in China, and we will conquer everything. This part of our conquest of Japan is easy, because it's most likely that they have already retreated the bulk of their forces in China and Korea. The largest competitor in this part of the world will be Siam. Before capitulating the Japanese, we are going to justify and declare war to some country guaranteed by the Allies. This way, we will not have to relinquish the territories that the Japanese had under occupation. They are pouring troops from all over the world in Japan in an attempt to stop us, but we are creating some massive encirclements. At this point, the Japanese army is en route, and there is nothing in the way of our victory over Japan. Alright, so we've managed to contain the Japanese troops in their last two victory points, their current capital Hiroshima and Kagoshima. Conquering any of these two places will trigger a Japanese surrender, but we ain't done with them just yet. We're going to clean up any resistance outside these 2 points, then we'll move troops back to mainland Asia and conquer everything there as initially planned.
Attenzione! Ordonanze. Ordonanze.
Manchukuo is largely undefended, and that's probably true for the rest of mainland China as well. We're going to set our troops on aggressive, and we'll push through everything until we've cleaned house. Whoa, would you look at that? Damn, Nazis! Good move there. We've crossed half of Asia and reached Xinjiang from the other side. We're going to join the Axis war against the Allies because we don't want to share the spoils of war with anyone, and we would like to have all the Southeast Asia under occupation for resources. We don't need to fight Japan anymore, since we have engaged Siam and made sure they will be in the peace conference as a defeated minor nation. Thus, we have proceeded to evacuate the Japanese from the real estate of Hiroshima, which has already traded owners from Emperor Hirohito of Japan to King Carol II of Romania. With the Japanese out of the picture, we now have to strengthen our army enough to be able to lead a successful invasion of the Americas. The first order of business will be to annex Russia, but not before recruiting all their soldiers. We have an opportunity we don't want to waste here, so first we will return all of the former Soviet Union's territory to Russia, then we will go for the manpower recruitment and the subsequent annexation. Processing the annexation of Russia takes a long time, it would seem. We are now going to release Communist China for more manpower. We are applying an almost standard recipe now. We are going to lend-lease a ton of convoys to reduce independence, recruit a huge Chinese army, annex China, then disband the army we have recruited. Here's the modern tank division template we'll use to destroy the Axis once the Allies are defeated. Okay. I wanna annex them and the Chinese are giving me land lease. Gee, thanks, but no thanks. Let the annexation commence.
Atenție!
In the meantime, let's conquer Tibet. We've prepared some divisions of Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're doing their thing in Jamaica now, brother.
Atențiune!
We are continuing the conquest of various islands around Jamaica, like Cuba and some others, because we need a foothold in here to invade South America. Venezuela is next on the list.
Atențiune! Adunarea!
Okay, another blunder of mine. We've attacked Iran with some infantry, thinking this will be an easy fight, and focused on the South American conquest. In the end, I had to flatten those mountains, make them plains so our infantry could fight. They've created a new faction with another victim of ours, Brazil. Just look at our losses compared to theirs. Instead of painfully cutting through the Amazon rainforest, it's a good idea to use the pirates and raid their cities on the coastline. That makes all fights in South America very easy. In Mexico, US troops and mountains are pretty hard to beat. That is, unless you're not using the new flintlocks. Boom. Please allow our troops to return your territory to the oldest geological era, the Hadean. The United States are about to capitulate. Nazi Germany has more war score than us, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that we have prepared a huge army with garrison orders all around the world, and when we'll declare war to the Axis, we'll engage everyone eventually and take everything in the following peace conference. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, we still have to clean this mess up.
Haideți, începeți deplasarea!
Okay, the Allies lie in defeat. We'll just take as much land as we can, we're not interested in puppets or anything. The liberation of Paris. How cute. Alright, we are now building a huge stockpile of equipment. We've prepared an overkill number of 40 with modern tanks with SPGs and mechanized infantry divisions. The army group located in the Army Theater Romanian Blitz is almost ready to fight. The troops are trained to the max and we're building up our airfields. We've left the Axis already, and meanwhile we wait to get full equipment, we are attacking people the Axis don't like, such as Finland or Sweden, because their relations with the Axis powers are bad. Wait, what? Ah, hell, we're not ready yet. This may be a sign they were preparing to attack us. Not all is lost, though. Our indecent number of modern tank divisions are like up to 95% strength. We will still plow through them with ease. We'll have to scramble some frontline troops so the tanks can push without any risks. This war would count as what? World War III? It's literally the entire world against the Kingdom of Romania. And we're winning. At last, when this is over, our king will have a good excuse to resume partying like a madman.
Gata de marș.
It looks like the beginning of the end for the world team of World War III. We won't do another Iran, we'll just flatten those mountains and have the tanks roll up in Zurich or whatever they need for the Swiss fascists to surrender. Oh my god, look at all that equipment we captured from the Swiss. Okay, Romania wins a rather short but truly global World War III. We'll proceed to just take everything. Alright, I apparently misclicked and liberated Sudan. We'll rectify that situation immediately by justifying a war goal against them and Liberia.
Attenzione!
I found some shiny new buttons to press in order to spend that political power we had banked up, and apparently we've pushed internal commerce due to that to new heights by repairing the Panama Canal. The last two remaining countries in the world, not counting ourselves, are Portugal and Australia. Unfortunately for them, they'll have to unwillingly join the Kingdom of Romania and live under the glorious tyranny of King Carol II. The pirates have received uprated flintlocks. Glorious fireworks show displayed over Sydney Harbour, everything and anything to celebrate our world conquest. So here it is, world conquest as non-aligned Romania, without exploits or other shenanigans. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching, bye bye.